Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 888. Now, in today's episode, we're going into a topic that I've recently got into, thanks to my brother, because he recommended a book, which I'll get into and give credit. But what it's been good for me is it's allowed me to know where I've been successful and why I've been successful in certain things, and also when I have not been that successful. So if you want to learn how to really get transformational results in your life, and it could be earning more money, it could be getting that career, it could be absolutely in every single way, letting go of anxiety, fear, self-sabotage, and becoming the unstoppable, the absolute self-certain, powerful you in every single way. Whatever your desire is, whatever your outcome is from letting go of something internal or getting something external, this episode, I think, is going to challenge you. It's going to cause you to reflect, but hopefully to be able to get 10x results in your life in a wonderful way. So this book I'm listening to when I'm going for my run is called 10x is Easier Than 2x, and it's done by Dan Sullivan, I believe, and Benjamin Hardy as well. So it's a really fascinating concept because it's saying doing something at 10x, as in like 10 times the amount, is actually easier than just getting 2x, like double the amount. Or you could say huge leaps are easier than taking the micro steps in learning and growing. And I always like those kind of big claims because it means we can kind of dive into it and really see what it means. So if you are curious about the book, I highly recommend it. It goes into people who have achieved this, which I'll probably go into a little bit today as well. But it is 10x is easier than 2x. And I like the audio, but there's a best-selling book by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So the reason why I really, really resonated with it is because it mirrored back what I'm going through, what I've been through, in a way to highlight where I have been successful. For example, I'll give you just a brief rundown of some of my successes and why they were successful as we break those down, and you can break this down for yourself. So one of the examples is actually my podcast, which you're listening to. You see, I just went all in on podcasting. Like I was what I call myself in my mindset is ferociously focused in creating and adapting and being as dynamic as possible in my creation to such a high level, even though I had never done it before, even though I had never spoken about like doing audios and videos or anything like that. I just jumped into it, went all in, and just got tremendous results almost very, very quickly. Now, I did take time. First month, a few listeners, and I've said that in a tongue-in-cheek way, it's just me and my dad listening. But it quickly grew from the 1 or 2 listens to 100 or 2 listens to tens of thousands of listens, all the way up at one point, and then I took a break for some reason. It got up to like 250,000 downloads pretty consistently for a month, or as it was per month. Other examples where I've noticed this kind of success is when I went all in and just went away for 2 months to get fit. I just gave up everything I was to be who I really wanted to be. Other ones when I went to America for a month and became a trainer in what I do. So now I certify, but it was just over a whole month with just 2 days off to immerse myself in becoming a public speaker and a trainer and a certifier in what I'm doing. And the same thing recently when it comes to the app development. Like I've been going all in trying to create something very unique And if you think about all the sessions I've got on there, which are literally hundreds of hypnosis sessions, if you break that down into time, you're looking at so many hours of just constantly creating content. And it wasn't because I was doing it like here or there. It wasn't where I was just kind of going slow. It was actually going as fast as I can to be able to get as big a success as possible. But on the contrary, I've noticed there's been these gaps in my life where I've been just trying to do it the 2x way, like the subtle steps, gradual growth, and again, that compound interest in my development personally or in business or whatever endeavor. And it works, right? Getting better works. But it depends what you really, really want. Like, you could do X amount of reps if you're working out, which it works, right? It is better than not doing any reps in the gym. But if you start to get more dynamic and get it more explosive at times in certain movements, mixing it up, you'll get bigger and better results rather just doing 10 reps every single day. You want to mix it up, go higher, lower, heavier, lighter. There are lots of different ways we can start to think about this. One of the issues, though, that I have found that stops you and maybe others, I'm not saying just you, it may not even be you, but I think just in general as a humanity, is we get what we unconsciously feel we deserve, right? I'm going to say that again. You might even want to write that down. We get what we feel we unconsciously deserve. So that really goes into our values and it goes into our standards. Like, what is the standard that we're setting ourselves up with? Like, if you have a goal right now, like if you think about one of your goals, what is the standard of success that you're setting up for yourself? And when you think about that standard, is it explosive? Is it subtle? Is it based around scarcity? Is it based around fear of not changing? There's lots of elements to that. But if you are unconsciously feeling that this is what you deserve as where you are, because when you think about it, that is the data that we go through, but that history is not what really counts. It is your work and the standard that you're setting yourself up for now. So in other words, yes, we can go through lots of past traumas, but it doesn't have to define who we are. It's more about setting up our standard for success in such a big way that you will make huge changes. Another example for me is where I really suffered, which was school. And I think I may have said this on a recent episode. If not, it was a private speaking gig I did recently. But growing up when I was at school, my standard, my expectation was to get a C, right? That was my expectation. If I could only get a C, because that's what I, keyword here, needed to get by, for me anyway, then I was satisfied. So what actually happened? Well, I got either C's, no A's, no B's, I got C's or below, because my standard was, this is almost the benchmark. This was like the ceiling that I could only get to. So I was unconsciously feeling like that's all I deserved, was to get a C. And that's what actually happened. It mirrors back to me, right? Whatever my evaluations for life become suggestions to my own unconscious mind. So if I am unconsciously feeling like I deserve only this amount of life, so where I only deserve this kind of relationship where, because I don't feel good enough or worthy, that I might get hurt, used or abused, or just an unhealthy relationship, or whether it be in a career, or whether it be in our salary, though this is what I think I deserve because that's all I'm capable of. That is the benchmark, and therefore it becomes my limitation. So there's been experiences for me where I've had this very low standard. Although I may feel like it is a good standard, it is very, very low in comparison to those other examples where I've really pushed myself in business, where I've pushed myself to go beyond what I think is possible. Because your mind and body will follow where you expect to be. So ask yourself, are you expecting to be where you already are? Are you expecting differently? Are you expecting worse? Are you expecting something far greater? Because remember, I'm going to say it again, your expectations become a benchmark to your unconscious mind. They become suggestions which just reinforce it. So you get what you unconsciously feel you deserve. And notice I said unconsciously. So I'm not saying that you are purposeful in your limitations. All I'm saying is we've grown into that. We've assumed it to be true. Now, if we go into the why that is the case, we can go through just being a human, because we have been built in our DNA to just survive. Just think about it. Way back, the prime thing we had to do was just survive day to day. We had to produce enough offspring in order to have continued humanity. And that is why way back then, or not even that way back, there was lots of offspring, knowing that not every part of the offspring would actually survive. We see it in animals right now, in coyotes and all those kind of things, where they produce more litter depending on the circumstance or the environment they're in. It's like this feedback experience. If the group is going low, the female coyote will actually produce more offspring to try to manage it. But think about it, that is a survival thing. And that is how we operate. Now, knowing that is our biology, then we can add the I don't know if you call it sociology as such, but the social aspect of it. Like, what are the social expectations and standards that we're setting? Are we having low standards because maybe people are pushing high standards upon us because we're expected to be a certain way? So whether it be we're comparing ourselves to other people, which makes us feel bad, which then produces that standard that this is all I can be. This is my evaluation. I can never be like that successful person. So we get into that comparison conflict. But it's based on that social side. We can include our friends and our family, because when you think about it, we start to mimic their expectations. We start to go, well, maybe that's all I'm worth. If my parents always said to me that I'll never amount to anything as a kid, of course, I'm going to probably assume that as my belief and standard for life. If you've grown up in a broken home or just observed unhealthy relationships, what is your standard for a relationship going to be? It's going to be what you've experienced. And that is why we can repeat what we've gone through. Same thing with money. If you've just surrounded yourself, not purposefully, but growing up around a lot of scarcity and limiting beliefs around money, that it's the root of all evil, that it doesn't grow on trees, well, literally it comes from trees, a lot of currency anyway, you expect that to be true. That becomes your standard, that I can only ever earn this amount. And when we get to that place, we come from needs of necessity. So the necessity to get by, the necessities to be able to survive. And when we come from need, we actually experience scarcity. Because I don't have it and I need it. If you think about just the energy of need, when you think about just saying it in a sentence, I really need money, does it feel good? Or does it feel like you're operating based on fear and scarcity? Well, it's going to be the latter there. It's going to be the fear and the scarcity because we are lacking something. So if we go, I need to be confident, I need to be having this amount of growth in my career, or I need a relationship, you will never really get fulfilled because you don't have it on the inside, because your standard of what you think is just getting by. And that could be like the 2x way of living, just gradual improvement, hopefully at the very least, if not staying the same. But that need, because you're here, you're listening, you want to grow, causes us to get into that 2x. As in just kind of these small steps, these small little things, or doing the same thing over and over again just to maintain. One of the downfalls, and I say this with all the love for my app and my podcast, is which I love on the one hand because it keeps people out of the pain, right? It really does help people. I mean, that's what it's there for. And for a lot of people, it can solve many things. But on the same notion, because it's generalized for everyone and it's not designed for you specifically, it can keep us there. Like, it's better than going worse. And yeah, it can keep us on that 2x model of just subtle improvements as we keep on listening. So that's why I love it. But it's not personalized. That's what I'm really trying to say here. And also, if we have our standards being very low, even the hypnosis can actually just meet that standard because we are our own very best hypnotist of self, right? We've hypnotized ourselves into thinking sort of things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, and all those kind of things. So we need to move ourselves from being a needer, like I need this, into a wanter. I want this. That energy is different. I want this. I want that. It doesn't have that energy of needs of necessity. Now, of course, this is just based on the book. I would probably change the want to something better than that because I think there are some connotations there. But we can get the frame of what it's trying to come from. Like, need is really, really scarcity. Want is about trying to produce freedom, right? I want this because it will give me freedom to grow. And the interesting thing it also says in the book is that when people say they need money, well, the need of money will hold us to a place, but it's not what we really need. I mean, you've probably heard me say this loads of times. You don't need money. You want what money will give you. If, for example, which comes from the book, if you had like millions and millions of dollars or pounds or euros, well, what good is that going to be for you if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere with no one and no things to actually buy? Money in that case would be nothing unless you're just burning it to stay warm, but it's not doing what it's meant to be doing. Excuse me. So even when we say about money, it's not what you want what it will give you. So how can we go from needing to wanting in getting all that freedom? So how can we move from the 2x to the 10x living? Like I said, every one of my successes, because that's why it's been really nice to listen to, it kind of makes sense why I've been successful here and why I've been treading water here and why I've just been doing gradual growth. So how do we move from that? Well, it's really about changing that standard that you're going for. And in the book, it goes making really like these outlandish goals and dreams. Because if you remember what I said about when I was at school, I said I wanted C's. So what did I get? I got C's or below. If, as I was a kid there, and I said I want A's or A stars, which we have in England, then I'm going to get that or something a little less, maybe a B, maybe all the rest were C's rather than D's and E's. So it's about where your benchmark is. So ask yourself right now, are you settling? Are you just setting that standard for your unconscious mind. And the book goes into a lot of the unconscious or subconscious level of thinking of what we set ourselves. But you've got to start on a conscious level to go, how can I 10x this? Like, if you wanted, or if you just need a few $1,000s per month and you've just settled for that and that's all you're expecting, that's not going to be what you really, really want. If there's more things that you want, whether it be giving more to charity, to contribute, whether it be that car, that vacation, that holiday, to support your family, your children, a legacy, investments, what do you really want? Like, if sometimes I like to think about it in a way that if anything was possible, if I had absolutely unlimited belief, like beliefs didn't even limit me, what would I really desire? What is the relationship that I'd like? What is the money amount per month? Is it 5,000? Is it 20,000? Is it 100,000 a month? For some people I work with, they're at like $250,000, right? That per month. All these kind of things. What is your expectation? What is your idea if you could just go back like you're a child, where you just have like free thinking, where you could just imagine anything? What is that? And like I said, it could be your career, it could be your finances, it could be health, it could be relationships, it could be spiritually or religiously or whatever your belief or faith is. I don't really mind that, but you get to choose here. So notice how I said that. You get to choose. So maybe it's time we get to choose the new standard. To be honest with yourself is the first step. Be honest with your present standards that you're setting yourself up for, because you don't want to hide from them. This is what we've been programmed. Like I said, we are biologically programmed to just mainly or primarily to survive. It's time to shake that belief unconsciously in the things we want by at least acknowledging what our present standard is. So whatever the endeavor that you have, the goal and the dream that you have, or as to where you presently are, what is that standard for you? Because then the next step is, if you were to think about the person that you want to become, maybe who has all that wealth and that career, relationships and health and faith, belief, whatever it is for you, what standard does that you have? Think about that. If you were to look through the present level of standards you've been setting yourself, like that 2x growth or just subtle growth, and then step into and imagine that unlimited you who's achieved your goal and outcome, no matter what it is, what is the standard that you was setting? I'm going to guess that you is profoundly more free when it comes to belief of what is possible, where that you is actually going, I want this or something better. That you have this expectation for a good life. You have expectations for great relationship. You have expectations that you're going to get that financial abundance because it's just happening. Think about the different viewpoints. And then you've got to go, in order to become that me, I have to choose. So I try to be very deliberate with my words here. To choose to let go of who I presently am. And you do that by setting yourself new standards. Some huge things which may feel unattainable, which may feel impossible. And you might be going, well, Joseph, is that just setting me up to fail? Because sometimes that's been my thinking. I've said the analogy before, like you have the big goal and outcome, and where you presently are, you might look at it and go, oh my goodness, that's so big that you may self-sabotage yourself, which can be true. But I like to think this new way of thinking of just considering the between being a needer and a wanter, from acknowledging where your present standard is, because if you let go of your present standard, then that goal and dream is far easier to attain. Now, of course, you've got to let go, in my opinion. It doesn't mention it in the book or anything like that, But you have to really work on that unconscious belief. What is that standard? Where does it come from? Are you consciously aware of what is unconsciously happening? Do you need help and support with getting help with that? Like, if you were to release that unconscious standard that we've been setting ourselves up with just to be who we presently are, or just to maintain, and that's where you've got to be honest. You might be absolutely not, Joseph. I'm 10xing everything. I'm always thinking bigger, acting bigger, and just ferociously focusing on that, which is fine if you are. This episode is not for you other than a confirmation that it works. But if you are not there, you may have to think about, well, where does that belief come from? Is it mine? Is it someone else's? Did I model it? Is it just deeply rooted that I cannot change it? And then if you come up with that benchmark of the new ceiling of that unlimited life, you will be able to go, okay, it's not what society thinks of me. That's not my business. What my mom and dad think of me is not my business. What my I just said that one, my siblings and my friends, I don't have to buy into that belief system, because that's their expectation. That's their standard. And we are uniquely differently. So as a person, we are unique. We may come from the same family, or may be very similar with friends and colleagues, but you don't have to abide by their standard of what is possible and what is good for you personally. I see it all the time. People just assume the standards of what they've been surrounding themselves with. And I've said this many a times from I don't know where the quote comes from, but you are the sum of the 5 closest people you hang around with. Well, maybe we need to be able to reset the benchmark and surround ourselves with other people, or get help to let go of that limiting belief. So I want you to remember that sentence of, you get what you unconsciously feel you deserve. I'm not putting blame on the unconscious mind here or you consciously, but it is kind of true as well though, right? Like, if we feel we're not enough, then how can we ever get enough? If we don't feel worthy, how can we be worthy of that 50% promotion? It's kind of impossible, right? If you don't feel you're lovable, how are you meant to be able to give and receive love in a relationship? Because that's just impossible, right? Like, you get what you feel most of the time, or what you believe most of the time. But if we get outside of our own way, and maybe make a little challenge to yourself, if I could 10x that, whatever that goal and outcome is, financially, health, relationship, career, faith, whatever it is for you, if you could 10x it, if you had that unlimited belief that it was possible, and you said, this is my new standard, this is how I'm going to live, because I'm going to give up who I presently am to be that person that I want to be. You've got to give up who you presently are. You may have to give up some certain things. It always reminds me of times of my own growth when it comes to investment as well. If the biggest returns that I've got were the biggest so-called costs, right? The biggest investments I made in myself, in other words, financially, and in time as well, because you've got to follow through. But those were the biggest game changers I have ever experienced in my life. The more I invest in myself, the more return that I got by. But the problem is, we go by cost. We go by cost. It is that protective mechanism once again, right? Is that I've got to survive. I just need to get by. But we've got to change that frame. We've got to change that relationship from investment to cost. Because the cost of going either slowly into your success, the difference between 8 weeks and 10 years is huge. Emotionally, physically, in time, in stress, in opportunity, and in experiences is huge between 8 weeks and a decade. And on top of that, we just even think about it in terms of that biology, we kind of go by that, well, it's going to cost me this, it's going to cost me that, it's going to cost me this. It doesn't cost you if you get what you want. It becomes an investment. And if I were to imagine, if you were to look at every goal that you want that someone else has achieved, they absolutely invested in themselves to get there. And even if you ain't got money, like, I'm not talking about that specifically, although I believe in it. I do know that when you invest in yourself, you get the help, you set that new standard of success. You give up who you presently are to be that person. Like I said, look through the eyes of that successful you. What did that you have to do? What new outcomes did that you have to set? What new standards did you have to live by that you actually followed through? And like I said, the audio book, and you've got a physical book as well, if you want to get that, by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. 10x is easier than 2x. And it just sings true to me based on my successes. I 10x'd it. In those other things of just what I wanted, it was slow growth or no growth. And of course, if you ever need help with that, you don't have to get my help, but if you ever needed to and you wanted to kind of go for that 10x outcome, and I'll be there with you on that journey, you can go to josephclough.info/talk. But in this case, like, you've got to be that kind of person. Like, you got to be willing to give up that, because that's who I only work with. I'm even setting up some new standards for that as well within myself of who I actually want to be working with at the moment, which is another episode, I'm sure. But if you go to josephclough.info/talk, you get to fill out an application and then show up on a one-to-one call with us. We'll get clear. It's like a consultation. We'll figure out where you are, where you want to be, and if we can get you there in as little as 8 weeks, then we'll do so. Where it be in your career transformation, where it be in your business, you've just got to be a professional. You've got to be willing to invest, because there is an investment for this customized, tailored experience. But whatever happens, you got to think bigger, dream bigger, operate like that 10x thinking, and you will get results. I promise you that. Just like I said, the data in my own life and those who I know are super successful, even way more successful in compared to so many people in the world, like they are at the peak of their industry, from directors, from athletes I've worked with, from big entrepreneurs. I notice the subtle clues of how they got there and where I've been very, very successful. So if we can replicate that in any desire, then why not? Let's just go ahead and make it happen. You are not your past. You are what you're doing, right? The work, in other words. That is who you are. That defines you in every single way. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to speaking to you and hopefully hearing from your successes. Why not? Let's 10x, and let's just do what has to be done. Many thanks, and goodbye.